Hi, my name's Spencer Malcolm, and I just finished watching Bright on Netflix. Bright is directed by David Ayer and stars Will Smith and Joel Edgerton as two cops in a modern fantasy set version of Los Angeles. It's the LA that we know, but there's like elves and orcs and stuff like that running around. The story is about Smith and Edgerton, who one night on patrol discover this one elf girl who has a magic wand, and this discovery causes several different groups to be gunning for them to get the wand. Now, I always love whenever genres are mashed together, or like how Mages and Marksmen is a fantasy western hybrid, or how Star Wars is kind of like a medieval whole fantasy story mixed with like pulp 50 sci-fi, and those combinations always lead to I think always lead to really interesting worlds, really creative and interesting worlds in which stories can flesh out and bring those worlds to life. And Bright does have an interesting world, but the story doesn't really doesn't really delve into the world. Instead, it's a fairly standard buddy cop movie. And while that in itself is not a bad thing, there have been plenty of great movies set in very unique worlds that focus on a smaller scale story. But Bright's it doesn't really do anything with. Sorry, I have a bad stammer, and I have what I want to say written down, and so I can sort of help with that, but I don't know how much it will help, but anyway. Let's see. Bright doesn't really do anything new with this type of story beyond the initial setting. The orcs are clearly meant to symbolize oppressed minorities, and the elves are the stuck-up upper class. And while that's not a bad idea, it often kind of comes off as heavy-handed and occasionally beats you over the head with its symbolism, saying, "Look at those cops beating up the orc just because he's an orc." Maybe it wouldn't feel so forced if Zootopia didn't cover the same themes in a much more interesting way. But we live in a world where that movie did do those things, so. Though there are some good things in it, like Smith and Edgerton have good chemistry, and Edgerton especially is really good as the LAPD's first orc officer. He does an effective job at conveying what it's like to be in his situation, being an outsider or among both the other cops and his fellow orcs. Also, the girl playing the elf that Smith and Edgerton find is really good. She was really good in the role. Her performance was very subtle in where her actions would hint at things about her backstory. Will Smith was Will Smith, but he does a decent job in the role. Well, he's naturally very charming and funny, but again, he is just Will Smith. But other than that, Bright's a fairly generic cop movie with a great premise, some solid performances, and themes that were handled better by a Disney movie about talking animals. You can check it out if you want, but it's not really anything special about it beyond the premise.